To answer this video's title, looks that way, but why though? So Takara has released 3, yes, 3, not 2, but 3 Masterpiece Starscreams in the past. But they seem to be desperately trying to make us forget about 1.0. We remember Takara, it's okay to have failures if they teach you things, and it did, so I think MP-03 shouldn't be forgotten. Anyways, I don't have that mold, and it's not very good, so I'm not going to be getting it or including it in this type of video, because no one really goes out of their way to get them, let's be completely honest. Unless you're getting the jet, but at that point, buy a scale model and just paint it. This is MP-11 and MP-52. MP-11 was the secret mold that got repainted so damn much that I want to actually get the thrust version because that's my favorite cone head and it looks actually really good. Now, disclaimer, this MP-52 is a knockoff of the actual toy. While tolerances appear to be very similar to the official one from reviews I've seen, certain build quality things won't be up to the same standards as the official one, seeing as this one has a retail price of $80. As such, you will see plastic marring from sprue cuts on the plastics, and paint itself might be not as good as the official one, like there's some botched paint here and there, but it is very close. Also, in conversation with Dr. Lockdown about this toy, the KO seems to be more solid than the official one, but that's due to some mods that they made to the mold after seeing Takara's initial feedback from fans. I want to make that very clear, that this wouldn't have been good unless MP-52 came out. So when comparing these two, I will state as best I can when I'm talking about the KO's quality and when it's just a general comparison between the two sculpts, because the knockoff is a one-to-one take of the official. All that's changed is the joints, really. Starting off in jet mode, the coloration of the toys won't be a topic of discussion as much, seeing as one of these is Starscream and one of these is Thundercracker. Both jets have their pros and cons, but starting with MP-11, this jet mode is extremely solid. Like, it's rigid, nothing feels floppy or flimsy, even the profile of the jet is super slim. Sure, it doesn't have the side panels like MP-03 to make it even more realistic, but that's good because the robot mode suffered on MP-03. I also love the built-in stand port and the fact that it actually comes with a pilot, however it's so easy to lose, and the extra missiles and this weird clip thingy. The surface detailing on this redeco does get kind of lost in the blue, but I bet on Starscream's deco it's not that much of an issue. I do really like the way the jet mode is built. Everything holds together very well and compacts enough to make it a streamlined and sleek jet that really shows you what mode they focused on. One interesting thing to note, this and the Classics one, and by proxy the Earthrise one, share a lot in terms of engineering. So much so that the Classics one is actually on the back of this particular MP's box for the product image, which is a pretty funny little mix-up. This was the Toys R Us Thundercracker, and for some reason they put the Classics artwork on the back. On to the new one, and the jet, at least to me, isn't as good. Like, it's decent, but the undercarriage compared to the last jet is just a lot. The surface detailing on this one does pop though very well, and there's like a lot of it. The official version of this toy is a licensed jet from Boeing, so they got the details down very well. Now, the official version has a wealth of problems, tolerance issues, fit issues, bits falling off, etc. But this knockoff doesn't really have all those problems. The only issue I've encountered with the fit of the jet is the panel that covers the head being super annoying to line up due to all of its hinges, but I've been told that that is also an issue on the official Masterpiece copy. The build of this knockoff is actually very well done. I'm both pleased and surprised with its rigidity in comparison to the official version. But I do want to say this. Like, I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments being like, oh, why buy the official? The KO's better, blah, blah, blah. Takara should have... Yes, Takara really messed up MP-52. However, that doesn't necessarily mean the knockoff companies are better than Takara. Simply because this company, whoever made this knockoff, didn't have to design the toy. They straight up just ripped an existing design and made sure the screws were all tight. That's it. And because of that, I'm not giving them a huge amount of credit towards this particular toy. Takara still did most of the work. The knockoff company just copied their homework and changed their name in the opening statement. That's it. Yes, Takara should have done a better job with this toy. Of course, if they're charging 400 Canadian dollars for this thing, it better be perfect, but it wasn't. But at least their following release, Skids, is amazing. So Takara can do MPs, it's just they heavily missed the mark on Starscream quite a bit. And the only reason the knockoff is better is because it came out after. They were able to see the fan reaction to MP-52 and their own experiences with the toy and make changes to their release to make a better product. But this jet mode looks really good on its own. I'd prefer the older jet's more streamlined look, but this one's not bad. They do both have jet mode gimmicks. The old one has posable thrusters, an air brake, flaps that move, engine detail, and landing gear. The new one has landing gear, although because this is a knockoff, one of them is stuck. No air brake, no engine detail, flaps that can barely move. They do have engine flaps that you can open, but there's no detail in there. And both of them have this weird opening, like, nose cone thing with the radar. I wasn't expecting that to show up on the new one. And I don't know why it's there. No one's going to display this, like, nobody cares. This is one of those useless features that nobody really cares about. I mean, on 52, it's part of the transformation. That's fine. Put it there, why not? But on MP-11, it just makes no sense to me. They also both have opening cockpits, which is really nice. Like, a lot of those plane-specific details are cool, but you're not going to use them on a display toy like this unless you plan on displaying it in jet mode, which I know most people don't. Most people don't. I don't have the space to display 4 Masterpiece plane bots on my shelf, so that also ain't happening for me. Both plane modes, though, are great, but I have to say the old one's plane mode is definitely my favorite because it's the most solid and streamlined. It definitely wins airplane mode points from me over 52. 52 is not bad, but 11 just does it a lot better. Now, transforming the old one is a lot like the classics mold with more steps, so it's pretty easy to convert, and I like that. Getting the wings is it's a bit of a pain, and I will talk about the tabs in a bit, but the conversion overall isn't bad. I just hate those wings, man. MP-52, however, is a thing. So it's a thing. So the transformation on the official one is a big mess. Like, it's fiddly and wibbly and there's a lot wrong with its over complexity. And while this carries over the complexity, this KO doesn't have any of those floppy parts, nor does it have any of the super fiddly things, because it's built a bit nicer in those regards, which makes the experience of the mold for me different from others, because again, the knockoff company took the feedback Takara got on the official MP and applied it to this toy, which I'm sure Takara has done on the other releases of this mold because they've done that before in the past. The robot modes are very different, like very different. Okay, so one of them looks like a clear toy, while the other one looks like a clear animation model jumped off the screen. Starting off with the old mold first, and I dropped it because of that stupid chest thing. You know what? Let's start with the chest thing. It tabs in, but it doesn't tab in. It doesn't work. They never fixed that. That's one of the few things on a Masterpiece toy they've just never fixed on subsequent releases. They made a bazillion redecos and retools of this mold, and they never fixed the torso section properly. It's the most annoying thing about this toy. Like, look, every time you pick up the toy, you have to go for something other than where your brain wants you to pick it up. Like, how was this overlooked so much when they re-released this mold? And on top of that, the shoulders don't tab in, so it often pushes the torso up when you want to move them. It's so strange that they didn't fix this on any of the releases that they made of this guy. Like, they could have caught this on MP-11 Starscream and then fixed it on all the other copies, but they did not. It's one of those rare occasions where they just didn't fix it on subsequent releases, and it just looks weird. He also has a lot of leg kibble. The tail fins are very distracting and get in the way when picking this guy up from the leg, so there's that. Also, he's one of the few figures you cannot lie down on its back if you need to, like, store it somewhere briefly. You have to lie it down on its front because the tail fins stick out a lot and they can break. That's just a thing. It's a shame because the jet mode was super solid and the robot really suffers. Probably because more thought went into the jet mode a lot more than the robot mode. It does look a lot like a toy, though, more than a Masterpiece style Transformer. Even when compared to other MP toys of the era, it looks out of place. The plastic, though, feels really good. The new one, on the other hand, looks absolutely amazing. First of all, I can pick it up and it's not going to fall to bits, and the sculpt, while very cartoon, looks awesome. I can't deny that this Starscream looks amazing. I mean, I still prefer the MPM, and damn, it's a lot bigger than this guy, and a lot cheaper. But the MP looks, like I said, fantastic. But now onto the other stuff. The plastic on this particular version, because it's a KO, feels a little wonky at worst and good at best. There is some die cast, but that can sometimes be bad. Like, the fiddliness of some of the robot parts carries over from the official one here, but both of these share a similar complaint that's been present in a lot of Starscreams made by both Hasbro and Takara. What is a waist swivel? Like on a mainline toy, like the Earthrise one, I can kind of let it slide because it's a $40 Voyager. But on almost a $400 Masterpiece and an almost $200 Masterpiece, it should be there. Who cares if it breaks up the sculpt? I haven't heard a single person complain about that. I've heard people complain about the lack of a swivel more than it breaking the sculpt a little bit. On the old one, yeah, it's bad because there's clearly room for one there, and in fact, there is a waist swivel, but all the shit around the hips blocks it, and it's just not sculpted well. On the new one, the way he transforms, the way that that's done, even if they added one, the panel on the back here wouldn't allow for it. The over-complexity of this guy is the one thing that ultimately kills the waist swivel. But he does have an ab crunch, so take that, old Masterpiece. The wings, however, are locked into place, and that's a bit of a shame, but at the same time, they never really get in the way like the old Masterpiece. So I'm okay with them not moving. Plus, if you really want them to move, you can just take the tail fins out of their spot and then the wings move out of the way anyway. So that's completely fine, I think. They both share gimmicks again in robot mode, like the cannons can stay on during transformation, however MP-52s are really annoying. They both have boob missiles, but that's pretty much all they share. The new one also has a fuck ton of accessories. Alternate faces that don't want to go on because the knockoff I can't get the stock face off. It feels like it's gonna break. Blast effects that don't fit because the molding process of the knockoff, they made the ports too small or the pegs too big, and a Megatron that refuses to stay in Starscream's hand. Those are all knockoff issues though. I've seen the official one like be able to use all of its accessories perfectly fine. They do both come with stands. MP-11's isn't anything special. It just cradles his PP and holds him like 5mm above the ground. The MP-52 stand is posable, but it also only elevates the toy like 5mm off the ground. They are really only made for jet mode. But the stand on the knockoff is really bad. I've been told the stand on the official one's a lot better, but here I've tightened the joints as much as I can and it still does not work. Posing on the old one is meh. Those tabbing issues make it really annoying, and the added lack of waist or ankle like articulation is a big hindrance to how expressive you can make this toy. The fingers are also weird, and the wings untabbing during posing is a huge shame. Like it's definitely not meant for posing. The new one is a dream to pose, minus the waist swivel and the fingers. On the KO, the fingers like to come off, and that's why I don't touch them. That seems to be a my copy only thing, but it's something to watch out for. But posing the new one is so much better than the old one because at least it stays together. Now, one thing I do want to mention about the KO. It's labeled in a lot of places that it has fixed joints. Well, what does that mean? So MP-52 had a loose foot, loose knee, loose hips. They had those issues on a lot of copies. Why was that? Well, apparently Takara used a plastic similar to Ape Face, Siege Ape Face, to make those joints. And those joints are rigid because that plastic is rigid, right? It's nylon. It's a rigid nylon composite. However, it's not as rigid as it should be, and it does run the risk of breaking because of the structure. It's buildup, its molecular like structure. The knockoff uses something called POM plastic or polyoxymethylene. That is a much stronger material used for engineering thermoplastics, used in parts that require high stiffness, low friction, and it has an excellent dimensional stability. That is what they use to make the joints here. I don't know what the cost difference is between nylon and polyoxymethylene, but I'm glad that they used POM as opposed to nylon because that does make these joints a lot stiffer. That and the fact that they tighten the springs up inside, like they made them a lot stiffer. So the ratchets in the knees and the feet friction joints and the ratchets in the hips are extremely well made. And that is another thing that they did to fix this once they heard Takara's feedback. So that's another thing to look out for when you're deciding which Starscream you want to purchase. This one has joints that are really, really good. But coming back to the original question, is making an official Masterpiece Starscream hard? And after looking at both Takara's most recent attempts, yes, it seems that way. But then enter Howling Meteor and Crimson Wing, which I don't have, but I am in the process of acquiring, and may do this style video on those two prominent 3P Starscreams depending on how well this video does. These two third-party versions are much better and provide better posing, transformations, accessories, plastic, etc. to each official one that's come out. Howling Meteor was made to compete more with MP-11, and Crimson Wing legit came out at the same time as MP-52, so I wonder who it's competing with. The third-party ones are definitely better, and normally I don't compare 3P to Hashtag because budgets and retail and shit, but in this case, when Takara is the one charging 400 Canadian for MP-52, I have to compare it to Crimson Wing. And honestly, I say if you want an MP-styled Seeker, Howling Meteor or Crimson Wing are your best bets, because they are cheaper and honestly just better. Like MP-52 looks really, really good, but for that price, it's just not comparable. Now, on the topic of this knockoff, should you buy that? Well, my thing with buying knockoffs is I always want to go official or third party. I only buy knockoffs if the toy I want isn't available anymore from Hasbro or Takara, like its shelf life is over. For example, the original Venerable Sentinel Prime, that upscaled knockoff of the Studio Series. I want Studio Series Sentinel, and I would love to get my hands on an official one still. I'm trying to look for a good deal. However, that toy's shelf life ended, its retired product, and because of that, you cannot buy it anymore for retail price. How much are you going to spend on it? $90 to $120. Well, what costs the same price? An absolutely massive knockoff with diecast in it, so I went for that one instead. But I will still get the official one when it comes out. That's how I buy knockoffs. However, this one I made an exception because there's no way I'm paying 400 Canadian dollars for this thing. And I wanted to see how it stacks up to a modern masterpiece with those fixed joints, so I took the plunge. The knockoff runs for about $80 to $90 depending on where you look, and it's solid, but again, I would say just go for Crimson Wing or Howling Meteor. And also with this being a KO, you have to know that your mileage may vary heavily with this guy. Like, I got a good copy and you may get a shit one because it's a knockoff. There really isn't much in the way of QC checking, so that's something to note when you're going in to buy one of these. But yeah, my conclusion is Crimson Wing or Howling Meteor, and I will try to get those two figures to make the same sort of video here in case you are still on the fence about which Starscream you want to get. But that's been my look at MP-11 and the knockoff of MP-52. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.